Hello and welcome back to Earful Conversation Pod, and I'm your host, Keisha Partridge. I can't believe we are on EP4. I'm super excited that you're tuned back in. We have another great podcast for you today. Let's jump right into our question of the day. Let's see, so many to choose from. Okay, what animal best represents your personality? I'll have to go with, um, I'll say a jaguar. I think jaguars are super sleek and classy. I just love the swag of a jaguar. So that's my pick. Why don't you think about it for a second? What animal best represents your personality? All right, so let's hop into our story time segment. Today I'm just gonna talk about the wonderful Christmas break I had. My family and I, we all go to a cabin every single year. This year was no different. It was a wonderful cabin out. It's called Mahoney State Park, and it was a huge cabin where all of us could fit in it. I think we had like 9+ people. Everybody had their own space, room. Of course, we sanitized and cleaned everything so that it was safe. But outside of that, we had a great time. We set up our own tree. We brought our gifts, food, had a huge dinner, games. It was just an awesome time. And I know these last couple weeks we've talked about family structure and our experiences and what family means to myself and my special guest. And I feel like that family time that I have was critical. It was important. We like to get together as much as possible, but to just get away from the world and focus on each other and have a good time was much needed with everything that's going on. So I appreciate that. I appreciate my family making time for one another. And we're going to jump right into the topic. And this, it's going to still be along the lines of family structure, but I also want to discuss expectations that we have for one another and those within our families. So, for the last couple of weeks, our topic has been family structures. Let's define family structures. Family structure is defined as those within your household. So, your immediate family, those that you are living with. We've talked about our experiences within our family structure. I brought my special guest. He talked about his family structure and what he experienced within his home. Um, it's also important to recognize your experience and know that it's valid. But you also have to have conversations with those that are within your household. If you're no longer living with your parents or your siblings, it's important to hear their perspective and their experience within the same household could be completely different. So it's a matter of checking in. Um, some of it is like a reality check, it can be, but still do not take away from your experience, what you felt. But it's nice to hear other people's perspective on your household and how you were parented, how you treated one another. Maybe you received something in the wrong way. So this is just basic things that can just help you with your mental health and moving forward with your healing and all of that. It'll just give you a greater perspective. Um, and then really you can start thinking about what really matters. We're talking about healing. Maybe you're taking things extremely too personal and you're blocking your blessings and your ability to move forward as well. think about your expectations. That's something huge that I would like to talk about for the remainder of this podcast is the expectations that we place on others and thinking about the expectations that are placed on us as well. Are your expectations set too high for your family members or are they set too low? Um, what is expected of you? Do you even know what's expected of you? A lot of times we have several expectations for those around us, but we haven't even thought about what is expected of us. And do you care what's expected of you? You know, is it something that you want to work towards bettering? Do you want to have an understanding of what's expected of you? Some people don't care. But if you're a family and you care about those relationships, you should care about the expectations. You should at least hear people out and why those are expectations that they have placed upon you. And what type of control do you have over that? How do you move forward when people have high expectations for you that you're not able to achieve? What do you do with that? For me, I'm the conversation lady. So I'm thinking, discussing those things will move your family forward, progression. So, for example, for myself, I want to believe that my expectations for my son is to do his best. It's just that simple. You know, a lot of us parents will say that. I just want you to try your best, do your best. But is that really what our expectation is? I don't know. For myself, I have to be honest and say, realistically, that's not the case. I found myself really pushing for perfection. I don't know if anybody else that's listening has pushed their kids towards perfection as well. I know as a people, as when I say as a people, I mean Black people, because of the condition of our society, we may push our children towards perfection in a protective way. And what I've noticed is that kind of forces our children to grow up faster. And that's another thing that you need to be aware of when you have these expectations. You have to take society into consideration and the unjust and the racial tension and the police brutality. And that has to be on the front of your mind when you're placing expectations on your children, your husband, your wives, siblings, whoever the case may be. That's just something that's just an addition. It's also not about what you say, but how you react to your personal expectations not being met by others. So you might not say, I'm upset that you didn't get all A's, but your children can feel that. It's obvious. And then they realize at a young age what your expectations are for them. And it can cause a lot of anxiety and pressure for children and also parents when you have these expectations that are put upon you from every which way. It can be overbearing. It can be a lot. So, for example, let's look into the school. I honestly feel pleased when my son gets all A's. I have to be honest about it. But when I look at it and really think deeper, is he retaining all of the information? Is a question I ask myself. So, but also, what is he even retaining? And is it going to be beneficial in life? That's the next level of parenting and really thinking a little bit deeper. For the first 8, 9 years, I just wanted him to be super successful and, like I said before, push perfection. Now that he's 11 years old, I'm more paying attention to details. What are you learning? How can you apply that within life? And I do believe that as a parent, you need to start looking into these things a lot earlier as well. Um, I challenge everyone that's listening to this podcast to think about the expectations you have for those within your household. Are they achievable? And where did these expectations come from? For example, for myself, I believe the pushing of perfection was from my childhood as well. My parents really didn't want to know exactly what was going on in school. I don't need to know the details. I don't need to know the lessons that you're learning at school, the topic, and all of that. I just need you to come home with the grades. I need you to come home with all A's. And that was pretty much the expectations, not really knowing the details of what's going on in school, but this is what I need from you. So, with those expectations just kind of being set, like with your family, may not even know as a child what you're going through and what the lessons are and the topics and things like that. Like I said before, you have these high expectations, and the generations continue to change, and the coursework is harder, and the way you do the work is totally different. Like a lot of our parents couldn't even really support us in the homework, and likewise it's really difficult for me to support mine as well with all of the changes, and I work in education. So you also need to know what the person that you have these expectations for, what they're up against as well before you can really set the expectations. So you need to have empathy as well. So I think that's where a lot of my high expectations came from, is that those high expectations were placed upon me. But you also need to think about it from your child's perspective. If we put high expectations on them, that's something that they're learning. And a lot of times, if you push high expectations, you're going to feel it. And I do feel it from my son. He has very high expectations of me. So I'm constantly pushing myself to be the best parent that I possibly can be, because I know he's watching and I know that I've set these really high standards. So I myself must, you know, go far and beyond. So I really push myself to perfection, and I know he's pushing me as well. Um, so that's an activity that I really want to ask my listeners to do, is to think about what expectations others have for you, and are you living up to it? Do you care to live up to it? Is It's a moment of being really intentional to observe the expectations others have for you and look at yourself, and determine if you're meeting those expectations. And then again, finally, bring the family together and start discussing the expectations that you have for one another. That's key, that's important. That's the foundation of the family, is to have an understanding of everyone's expectations and perspective. It will bring so much clarity. This activity works. This is something that I am doing as well. It's a process. Your family might not have all the answers right away in one sitting, but it takes time, and this is a conversation that's going to be happen often, I will say. But it will strengthen the family, and who doesn't want to grow as a family? Relationship takes work. Um, so, like I said, this is a process. I would love to hear your feedback from this activity. It doesn't happen overnight. Do this multiple times. Give me some feedback on what's going well, what's not going well, added to the activity, and things like that. I again appreciate everyone listening in on the podcast, and I want to end this podcast with giving a shameless plug. The shameless plug for today is Design 99 Studios. You can find their business on all social media platforms. I found on Facebook will probably be the easiest way to find them. I am super, super pleased with my Christmas photos slash family pictures. Please check her out. Her name is Natalia. She takes quality photos, great service. That is my shameless plug for today. Thank you for tuning in to EP4 of Earful Conversation Pod.